These words do not exist. What's it like in your world?
Experience life to the power of PHB. Good, better. Bank PHB.
If you're watching, you're welcome to your program, One-on-One, The Exclusive. My guest tonight is Apostle Dr. Kennedy Jackson Sr. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Before we go into this interview, probably you might briefly tell us briefly about yourself.
Well, I'm the head of Sovereign Church of Elohim International. We have a diplomatic outreach, One Blood International, that I founded in 1976. We've done diplomatic interventions in 34 countries around the world to date. The last 12 years, we've been, well, more than 20 years we've been here in the continent, but the last 12 years we've been concentrating our development efforts in Sierra Leone, beginning in 1999 while the war was still going on, and then coming up through recent times. Our concentration, although we have development in different areas, we were concentrating primarily on rice production and development and training. So we've trained over 10,000 beneficiary trainees, and we developed our program in rice from a cup of rice, a buttercup of rice back in '99 to just over 6.5 million bushels in our most recent harvest. And up until 2009, all of that was done, production up through 470,000 bushels was all done with manual labor. It wasn't until 2009 that we put our first machine in the farm. We did that to prove that our countries in the region have the ability to pull themselves up out of the food security problem, but it requires work and commitment of everyone from the youth on up, but especially the youth, because what's developing in the country is their future. It's the future for them and their children. So we've demonstrated that. We've gone in, we've demonstrated our conflict elimination models, not conflict resolution, but conflict elimination. So we've been able to go into areas where they've been conflict for generations and eliminate them so that they no longer exist and the communities are welded together.
Do you have a criteria for selecting countries that you go to?
Yes, we have in the past, but at the time, Sierra Leone and Liberia that were still engaged in war did not qualify under those criteria, and because of that, I couldn't, with a clear conscience, send someone else on the ground. So, since this is my home of origin, I came on the ground myself in 1999 and began to do and build what needed to be done. And Sierra Leone is just getting to the point now where they would qualify under our criteria, but that's a moot point now, because we knowing the risks after having worked in Bosnia and other places, East Timor, we came back home and just started doing back home what needed to be done as we could, where we could, when we could. And we've made an impressive accomplishments, which is now a matter of record and a source of a recent documentary.
You've diverse areas of interest, perhaps agriculture and food security, human resource development, conflict elimination. Yours is not resolution, it's elimination.
Yes, yes.
Health, education, infrastructure, international relations, name it.
You know, it's very easy to point out problems. The challenge is identifying principles and applications to bring about the resolution and ultimately the elimination of those problems. And that's where we've tried to specialize through the years. Rather than doing a lot of talk about the problems and solutions, we've gone in and as a micro model demonstrated what the solutions are. And those realities are realities that exist on the ground that have been documented both in
what
media.
do you look at? You look at the underlying problems of the conflicts. You diagnose the problems, you get to know what they are, and then you address them right from there.
Yes, yes. And a big part of the problem is, believe it or not, food insecurity.
Food insecurity.
Because when we look throughout the record of human history, we can't find a single incident where a country that was feeding itself was manipulated into civil conflict. But when you're not able to feed yourself, then outside forces can come and create conflict and stir up the youth and others and say, you're not hungry because of the government. You don't have this because of the government. And then they stir up conflicts, and then they'll start saying this tribal group or this ethnic group or this other group is the reason for it. And when people are hungry, their minds aren't rational. You know, it's like...
So to put it simply, food insecurity anywhere is a threat to national security.
It's a threat to national security, absolutely, absolutely. So the highest priority has to be building the capacity to feed oneself so that you have a way of limiting and controlling outside adverse manipulation. Because when you're not hungry, then people can't stir you to do what you don't want to do. But if you're hungry, you'll do anything for food. That's the way we take these big beasts and get them under control, because they know their food will come from us. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Mr. Jackson, we draw this interview closer home.
Okay.
You're back in the Gambia, probably after how many years? There was some kind of a disconnect.
Yes.
3 decades, probably and a half?
34 years I was away. I left in 1977. I did, yes.
Coming back after 34 years.
Yeah.
What is different?
You know, when I left Gambia, 1977, it was 4 years after a European-financed land resource, national land resource survey. At the time, I left a dirty, void, decaying, drug-ridden, hopeless and hapless, yet very friendly nation, where crime and corruption was ignored by the state house that was intermittently lit by a partially functioning, partially dysfunctional generator.
It was kind of institutionalized.
So it was to be honest, Gambia at that time was like a big ghetto. It's like a big slum with friendly people and desperate people. When I returned, I was speechless. 34 years later, I was speechless. I returned to a beautiful, vibrant, safe, clean, hopeful nation where the challenges of national development are increasingly shared as a collective and collaborative effort between the people and the government, the leadership. An environment that provides development opportunities for humanity-loving citizens and non-citizens alike. A country where traditional and non-traditional, modern and scientific, alternative and complementary thought and practice coexist without conflict in practice and by law, protected by the Constitution. A country where non-persecuting religious freedoms is a protected and applied constitutional reality and practice and a source of national pride. Instead of the theoretical concept of and political debate on the subject like we see developing in the West. It's becoming more theory in the West, but it's a reality here on the ground. A country where freedom of speech includes the globally dwindling concept of accountability, respect, honesty, and truth. A country that does not claim perfection, but a country that's striving for both perfection and integrity. You know, it's unprecedented in modern time, and that's the reason why the people have the zeal and exuberance for the leader. It's been a natural progression, but it's a progressional model that we've not seen anywhere else. So it's hard for the rest of the world to internalize the realities of the Gambia. But that's the Gambia that I return to.